Have you ever questioned what's in a history book? Not questioning what's in it, but what's not in it. For instance, a historical figure that you may not know. You know Napoleon Bonaparte, right? French emperor, short. Marie Antoinette, French queen. How about Marsha P. Johnson? You don't know her name, do you? That's exactly the problem. We forget about certain parts of history. And I want to begin by sharing two stories that perfectly exemplify this. Beginning with Henrietta Lacks, the most important woman in the medical field. Henrietta was born on August 1st, 1920, in Roanoke, Virginia. She led a normal life. She worked on a tobacco field. She was normal. She had 5 children. She loved to dance with them. Favorite food was spaghetti. Painted her nails red all the time. But everything was going to change when she was diagnosed with cervical cancer at the Johns Hopkins Hospital of Medicine. She claimed that it felt like there was a knot in her. They soon found a cervical tumor that was not detected during her 5th pregnancy. Henrietta was brought into the hospital after being rejected by about 2 others. And while she was in that hospital, her doctor, Dr. George Gray, was looking for an immortal cell. Sounds crazy, right? Of like a science fiction book. But what he wasn't expecting was for that exact cell to be found in Henrietta. While she was undergoing a radium treatment, they took a part of her cervical tissue without her consent. She had no idea what was going to happen. He then tested on it and realized that it was, in fact, immortal. It multiplied at 20 times for 24 hours. It could be cut in half multiple times and survive extreme temperature changes. So it was, in fact, immortal. The thing is, Henrietta had no idea this was happening. They soon began to send out pieces of cell, and they began to distribute and test them. These soon led to such things as the polio vaccine, tuberculosis treatments, even science exploration. But what we don't know is who Henrietta is today. You didn't hear her name before in a science book. All you heard was Helia. Henrietta Lacks. It's the name of her cell. And Henrietta's family has been fighting for decades upon decades and getting nowhere. For wanting to, people have been educated about who she was, not about her cervical tissue. I mean, would you want to be remembered for your arm or your leg? Not you. Nobody remembers your name, but let me think. O-A, leg? No. And Henrietta doesn't get that justice. And it's oftentimes in the medical field that we forget about Black women. Women, in fact, are often erased in history. So what I ask tonight is that we don't forget Henrietta, and we keep in mind that when we learn about history, people like her are just completely erased. And there's no telling who can be next. Beginning on to a less forgotten person, Nicholas Copernicus. You've heard about him like, what, 2 or 3 times? He was born in Turin, Poland on February 19th, not too soon from now, in 1473. Copernicus had a relatively normal childhood for his time. He used to play with sticks and all that. But in 1483, he was 10 years old, his father died and his mother had no whereabouts. So he was sent to his uncle Lucas Waxenberg. There, his uncle sent him to university at age 16 along with his brother. Copernicus soon got 2 PhDs studying at the universities of Ferrara, Bologna, Gelogian, and Krakow. But we know Copernicus for his astronomy, but what about other things that he did? Copernicus wasn't a one-trick pony. In 1521, Nicholas Copernicus ended up in a raging battle despite his pacifist philosophies. Copernicus fought from January to February 1521 in the Teutonic War. He was stationed at a town called Olsztyn in Poland, and he fought in the Siege of Allenstein, which was 100 soldiers, aka peasants that Copernicus randomly found, including himself. And then they were against 2,400 knights. These knights, the Teutonic Knights, were known for being a terrorist organization against Slavic peoples. Germans, Russians, Ukrainians. Poland's, all of them Polish. They were all under the same threat. But unlike the other people in power, who Copernicus was originally with them, there used to be about 20 of them, they all ran away. But Copernicus stayed, and there he had an astounding victory over those 2 months. He changed the entire war so that Poland was not to be taken over by these terrorists. And he soon led to the fall of their organization. They disbanded the same year that he fought that. Additionally, he wrote a few things about economy. You know, why nickels are made out of what? How nickels are made out of, how pennies are made out of copper, how paper is money. He was the one who came up with that idea. That bad money, made out of bad materials, drives out good money, money made out of good materials. This may seem very foreign, but it's taught in every economics class. But we call this the Gresham Law, after this random British guy. Not the guy who actually came up with it. Not the guy who actually wrote it. We instead just remember, oh yes, random British guy. Would you want to have that taken from you? No. So, I guess in a way, we are like Copernicus. And as for his most well-known and also sort of stolen idea, the heliocentric model. This was the idea that the sun is at the center of the solar system instead of the Earth. This was created by Copernicus in 1543. It was published. That was the exact date that he died. May 24th, 1543, Copernicus died with the book in his hands. He was said to be smiling. But who do we attribute this with? Let me hear. Galileo. Galileo this, Galileo that. But Copernicus actually did it better than Galileo. He had an extreme accuracy rate. He was the first to come up with it, and he inspired scientists to create things. Unlike Galileo, who was a byproduct of this, Copernicus started a revolution, the Copernican Revolution. In this, they created the microscope, glasses. How about, I don't know, the invention of the thought of cells, plant cells, discovered with the magnifying scope after and during the Copernican Revolution. Yet, we forget that he's tied to all these things, and he gets a single sentence in history classes. Better than Henrietta Zero, but not doing him justice. So, the importance of Copernicus is that he's another example of how you can't exactly give him that name forgotten, but you can't say he was remembered. I haven't even told you about all the other things he did. He used to treat the poor for free. He was a huge philanthropist. He was one of the greatest people I've ever heard of in my life. He inspired me for years upon years. And what do we do to give him justice? Nothing. Henrietta, she also inspires me. She inspires women around the globe who know her. But no words for her, no. In history, we often forget the most important people in place of some random person who we may see as a better fit. Lapu, you haven't heard his name either. He's not in the speech because we've forgotten him so severely that he is no longer remembered. I couldn't even find his birthday. His birthday. We only know how about Magellan, the dude that he killed, who tried to colonize the Philippines, but Lapu wouldn't let him. And we forget Lapu in the first place. Throw it in the garbage. So I ask of you, to at least for Henrietta and Copernicus, to not let them sink away into that cesspit of being forgotten. For never to be mentioned in history books ever again. To not be remembered for who they truly were. Mansa Musa, we hear about him as some dunce. He was trying to help people. So in history, I ask of you to think twice about what you see. To think to yourself, is there more to the story than what I'm just reading on this small piece of paper? Is there more that I can do? In that, not only for Henrietta and Copernicus, we can remember others for who they truly were. And going back to a quote from Copernicus, my personal favorite. Oops. Those who wish to examine history must follow in historical figures' footsteps. However, and hold fast on their observations, bequeathed like a legacy. So I ask of you today, Let us bequeath our ancestors' legacies and never forget them.